Okay guys, welcome back. And those of you who haven't been following, this is the Rockster, which is the ugliest Porsche in Australia that I am putting this Audi V8 engine into. And if you haven't been following, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And if you're enjoying these videos, think about subscribing, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell. It does help us out. Now, last week I was building the subframe to hold this engine into place. This week I need to finish that off. I ran out of MIG wire. I've got some more MIG wire. I've got some rods for some crush tubes, and I've got to build some gussets and a bunch of bits and pieces. So let's get into it. All right, I've bolted the subframe back in the car without the engine so that I can go around there and I can completely weld up everything in the car so that I don't have issues with it warping later. So it's nice and solid in the car now. Let's get out the MIG. I've got some more wire. Let's weld it up. I'm not using the TIG on this just because it's just so much easier and quicker with the MIG. So start welding. All right, so we have the entire subframe now all completely welded up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some gussets in. So into these corners, particularly, okay, so I've got the subframe in now and it's all completely welded up. And now I'm going to add some gussets in to help reinforce this whole structure, particularly because this part of the structure here is replacing the old cross brace, so I need to make sure it's nice and strong. So I'm going to put a gusset in here and a gusset in on the top over here, over this side, on both sides of the frames. That's will help reinforce everything. Now I did mark it when it was off of the car, so I know I've got clearance for the engine. So let's start drawing up some gussets. All right, so I've cut out all my gussets now. I obviously made some cardboard templates and these should do the job nicely. So now I need to go through and I'm actually going to put dimple dies into all of these just to add a bit of strength, and they look really cool. So let's start dimple dyeing. So we have our plates with our dimple dies in them. So now it's time to weld them onto the frame and start making these gussets all do their job. Okay, so you can see here I have done my gussets on both sides. They're all nicely welded in, so that is a nice strong subframe section now. And the very last brace I'm going to do is going to be underneath this here. I'm going to use a bit of lighter tube just because that's what I've got lying around. It's also going to help to work as a bit of a bash bar because this is very slightly lower than the rest of the shell. It's going to protect the sump of the engine, and that's obviously something I don't want to hit. All right, so I am very happy. This subframe is looking like a very nice, neat, purpose-built thing. Now, before I put it back in the car, this whole thing is actually still not actually connected to the engine. I still need to make the mounts for the engine mounts, but I'll do that when it's back in the car. Before I do that, I want to put in some crush tubes into these tubes. So a lot of you brought that up, and whenever you try and drill and bolt through a piece of square or round tubing, you should always have crush tubes in. So basically what that means is that I went and got myself some small tube that is the right size for the bolts, and what I'm going to do is have these small sections. I'm going to drill the ends of these and mount these tubes inside, so there is a solid piece that you're bolting onto. You're not just bolting onto a tube that you could potentially crush. These things will be the lengthwise of the bolt and stop the tubes from crushing. So I'm going to go and put a bunch of crush tubes in all of these now, and then we can mount it back in the car. All right, I am really happy with how this has come out. This is a probably very over-engineered, but we have quite a nice, good, solid subframe. I think it looks nice and neat. It's going to work well. I've got all my crush tubes in now for all the bolting locations. I tried fitting it again, and it does still fit. Last thing I need to do is actually connect it to the engine, because at the moment this is completely separate from the engine, and it's actually going to hold the engine up. So last week you might have seen I made a couple of discs that are bolted onto the bottom of the engine mounts. They're nice big solid 6mm plates, and now I've got to put this all back in the car again with the engine on it, of course, and then make the standoffs so that I can actually mount the engine mounts onto the subframe, and we should be mostly there. Okay, so the subframe is bolted back in, the engine's in place. We are quite close to the alternator here, but that's sort of where it needs to be. I can alter it later if I have to and go around if it's going to start touching or whatever. But this is the plate I've got on the bottom of the Audi engine mount, and I need to make up some stock pieces to go between these two. So let's start trimming and making a piece to fit. All right, well, the subframe is all in. It is welded up to the engine mounts. So in theory, I should be able to lift the whole car up off of the lift table, and we actually have an engine that's installed in the car. All right, so we have a subframe in the car. I'm quite happy with this cross gusseted section. That's looking really good. Now we have engine mounts in, they're all connected up. I might do a little bit more welding when I finally get this off of the car, but they're pretty solid, weld on both sides. So that's looking pretty good, and yeah, we're all in. The last thing I have to work out is that this point up here, this rubber mount, that's actually the last brace that I really need to connect up to get this engine so that it doesn't rock side to side too much. At the moment, these engine mounts are too loose, so I need to put something onto there, but trying to make it fit into this space is going to take some thought. So I might be able to stick something up through the gap up here. I'll just, I think I'm going to leave it for now. All right, so we've got it in. That's a big part of the job marked off, but there's still a long way to go. Yes, the cradle is actually in the car, but we still need to connect up everything else. There's all the physical connections. And then, of course, the big one is going to be the wiring. So I've still got to have a look at connect up the radiator. I need to connect up the power steering, the heater lines, because I still want to have demisting and stuff like that. So there's a few bits and pieces that I still need to connect up. And then, as I said, of course, the wiring. And if you're really enjoying this and you want to support it, you can join us on Patreon. You can watch the videos a day early, ad-free, and it'll keep me going on these crazy projects. And if you need parts for any of your Porsches, make sure you compare prices at PorschePartsByJeff.com first. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one.